line from the highest concentration to the lowest concentration, the number of cells found in the dead and apoptotic gates to decrease, indicating our serial dilution was effective. And in fact, we can actually plot some nice dose response curves with all of the data that we achieved. And what you can see is that looking at the TCT-116 cell line at 48 hours, you see that fluorosporine and camptothecin were far more effective at killing these cells than 5-fluorouracil. Looking at the IC50 concentrations of 63 nanomolar, 317 nanomolar, roughly 1,000-fold more effective than 368 micromolar requires to get 50% cell death in the TCT-116 cell line. So we got a nice illustration of a dose response, but we also wanted to look at different time courses. And shown here is our Chertan cell line, again the suspension cell line, so no crystallization required. We simply added our reagents to their analysis. And this was looking at a single concentration of camptothecin treatment at 78 nanomolar. And what you can see is over time, the untreated cells shown in the viable gate in the lower left quadrant, after 24 hours move into the apoptotic quadrant, so they're staying positive for TAS-J37, but still very few are staying for DRAC7. And then with an additional 24 and 48 hour treatment, you see more and more percentages of the cells moving into that dead quadrant in the upper right-hand quadrant. This can also be plotted out, and what you can see is a corresponding decrease in the viable cell count at 24 hours with an increase in the apoptotic cells, followed by a subsequent decrease in the apoptotic cells with an increase in the number of dead cells. So again, a nice illustration of time-dependent responses in this particular cell line as shown by flow cytometry. There are some additional considerations when thinking about flow cytometry. We've already touched on some of them. Some of the workflow will be determined again by the flow cytometer if you require tubes or plates. So it's nice to have the SPAN-8 pod working with tubes. Again, just the entire workflow can be processed in tubes using the SPAN-8, or like I mentioned before, you can actually do the processing in a plate and do a final transfer with the SPAN-8 into the tubes in a very rapid fashion. It's certainly useful to have that multi-channel head for the resuspension of adherent cells if that's required, but again, if folks are working on blood samples, etc., that may be less of a consideration. What we showed today was a relatively simple example of just an added read type of assay. However, most of the more typical workflows would require antibody staining, and this is more of a complex sample prep requiring washes and reagent exchanges. These types of workflows can definitely be aided by integration. And shown on the lower right-hand side, we did have an iPi system that we demonstrated the integration of the cytoplex itself. So if you were processing large numbers of samples, the integration allows the analysis to begin right at the completion of sample preparation without any intervention. We also, kind of on the right-hand side of that image, you can see a microplate centrifuge that can be directly integrated onto the deck. And again, this is excellent for the sit-down and wash steps for those antibody-type protocols. We also have the option to integrate a plate washer if this would help assist things. However, multi-channel can essentially do most of this workflow by itself with the addition and removal of washes, etc. And there's also the ability to integrate incubators, either something small shown as the single plate incubator next to the cytoplex in the image, or much larger, higher capacity incubators such as the Cytomat 2C. And this would be good for, say, long-term staining, or again, just similar treatments like we had, where you would treat cells with compounds, let them incubate, and then bring the cells back up from the incubator and do your staining. Once again, I've already mentioned our SANEDX software. This software would also be useful for this type of application for these higher throughput methods, where again, you can process multiple plates in staggered fashion. And once again, you can put in those type of timing constraints for the steps that are essential. One example would be crystallization. Obviously, you want to consistently treat your plates, because if you have longer crystallization times, this could actually change the cell surface expression of some proteins as more efficiently during longer crystallization treatments. So now we'll move on to another example, being transfection optimization. So when I think of transfection, it seems relatively simple. Essentially, just combining a lipid with a nucleic acid and putting it on top of cells. However, this is not necessarily simple for every cell type. And because of this, an optimization approach can help. Unfortunately, optimizing transfection conditions is not so simple. For this example, we chose to use a design of experiment or a DOE approach, where we changed the different lipids we were using. We tried different lipid concentrations, different concentrations of nucleic acids, and different cell numbers to see if we could identify an optimal condition for a variety of different cell lines. The problem with this approach, or the difficulty with this approach, is that, first off, from an automation perspective, you need ways to create these combinations. And again, this is a nice example of how having the selective tip feature for the multi-channel head really enables some of these, because you can do row-wise or column-wise transfers, as well as any combinations you might need. In addition, the other problem is that the conditions increase exponentially, so it's very quickly, as you add more and more conditions, the number of samples you need to test grow pretty dramatically very quickly. And we'll show an illustration of that as well. So the workflow that the person we took to automating the transfection optimization is we started with an empty plate, and then tried 6 different lipid conditions, really 5 different commercial lipids that were available, Darmafect 1 through 4, and lipofectamine, and one condition that had no lipids, so essentially our transfection control. We used our SPAN-8 system to transfer these reagents from tubes into the upper row of the 96-well plate, and then also used the SPAN-8 to just fill in the next 18 wells with media for serial solutions. Shown in the dark and light purple, we also used the SPAN-8 to transfer 2 different concentrations of our nucleic acid. We did a siRNA control. And on the next step, we loaded 6 tips on our multi-channel selective tip, much like you saw earlier with the 3 tips for the flow cytometry example. And we did a serial dilution in a row-wise fashion to get 24 different conditions of lipids, and then stamped those into the lower 24 wells using the same 6 tips. We then used our SPAN-8 at the same time to essentially stamp out those nucleic acids into the remaining 48 wells on the right-hand side. We then loaded 48 tips on the multi-channel selective tip and combined those 48 wells on the left to the 48 wells on the right, resulting in 48 different conditions of nucleic acid and lipid combinations. Following an incubation to allow for transfection complexes to form, we then stamped those 48 conditions into a 384 well plate and then loaded 96 tips to transfer 2 different concentrations of cells, resulting in 15,000 or 7,500 cells per well. The final result was 96 different conditions, as shown in the plate map below, and the 4 blue wells indicate the 4 replicate conditions for a given condition, such in this case was 0.8 microliters of Pyrrolect 1 with 100 nanomolar of siRNA and 15,000 cells per well. So the nice feature here is we're able to test 96 different conditions in quadruplicate for optimization in a single plate. If we tried to do this manually, my best estimate would be that it would take about 138 manual transfers, and instead the automation was able to achieve this in under 20 minutes. We then tested this approach on 3 different cell lines, the HET116 cells I've already mentioned before, and 2 additional cancer cell lines, an ACHN line, which is renal carcinoma, and a PANC1 pancreatic carcinoma cell line. We used SiGlow green as our transfection marker. This is a fluorescently labeled siRNA. And 24 hours after transfection, we added our same Drac7 reagent as a marker for toxicity, and we then performed a media exchange using a multi-channel head again to try and reduce the amount of background we got from the SiGlow green. We then did some imaging with the SpectraMax i3X with AMAX 300 imaging cytometer shown on the upper right. And this basically enables 4x images to be taken in bright field and 2 fluorescent wavelengths, 541 nanometers and 713 nanometers. And what this enabled us to do was to count total cells and then get an idea of our transfection efficiency by counting the number of green cells, indicating our SiGlow green has been taken up. We also looked at toxicity, so the number of red nuclei divided by the total number of cells. We looked at whether we had either inhibited cell growth or whether we had lost any cells during our media replacement by comparing our transfected wells to our untransfected wells in the bright field images. And then we also looked at transfection consistency by looking at the CVs across our quadruplicate wells. So no need to really look at the numbers here, but I'll basically summarize. The first set of wells on the left, green is good. This is basically an indication of getting over 30% transfection. The next set of columns, red is bad. This is basically any conditions that resulted in toxicity more than 5% above control wells. The next set, brown is bad. It's kind of difficult to see, but again, this is where we had less than 80% of our untransfected cell counts in a well. And then on the final set of columns, light green is good. This is where our transfection CVs were below 10%. So again, really the take-home message here is we sort of identified the test conditions by bold squares around those wells. And the take-home here is that you can definitely see there are differences across the 3 cell lines. And we'll really identify those in the next slide. So shown here are kind of the resulting optimal conditions for each of the cell lines. And again, what you can quickly see is that there are differences between the cell lines. All 3 of them had different ideal lipids that were used, at different concentrations of siRNA. But through optimization, we were able to achieve roughly 50% transfection efficiency with all 3 cell lines with acceptable levels of toxicity, and with CVs below 10%. Some of the cell lines, like PANC1 and HET116, were relatively transfection friendly, in that there were a couple different concentrations that might work. But the ACHN cells were significantly different and really more troublesome to transfect. And really, we did have to find that optimal condition to achieve that type of transfection efficiency. Some of the important take-home messages were that even as a simple change, even just a 2-fold change in lipid concentration, you would see very dramatic effects. 2-fold too low, you would see very low transfection efficiency, basically nothing. 2-fold too high, you would see rampant toxicity depending on your cell line. So, again, really driving home the need to do this type of optimization approach. In addition, because we were able to work in 384 well formats, this helped reduce our reagent usage. So again, these are not cheap reagents, so obviously the more you can do in a smaller volume, the better. But to try and do this manually, this really adds a challenge to this, because again, it's very difficult to tell which wells you've added reagents to, etc. And another nice thing is now that we have this automated approach, it's very easily adapted to different either nucleic acids or different assays. So if you wanted to adapt this to an overexpression type of assay, just change the reagents, possibly change your transfection reagents and add plasmids instead of siRNAs, and it should essentially work. Alternatively, if you didn't want to use a fluorescent siRNA as a marker, instead you had some sort of phenotypic readout, it might just be requiring changing the assay approach at the end. So now we'll sort of conclude with basic cell culture approaches. And again, this is something that not necessarily everyone thinks about automating, because it's something that was typically done at the bench, but this really is something that can benefit from automation. There's a number of reasons for that, because there are a number of challenges associated with cell culture. The first is that it's basically very time consuming, and this can be because it recurs frequently. You're probably passaging cells 2 to 3 times a week. If you have multiple cell lines flowing at the same time, the throughput can become really burdensome, and it's relatively inflexible. Cells don't really care if you have an alpha-heme schedule. If they're confluent, they need to be passed that day. In addition, there's high variability in this type of work. For example, sometimes you just have cells that you're waiting to place later in the week, and so maybe you don't have that much work, but Monday may look very different than Thursday, or this week may look very different than next week. In addition, we know there are people in the lab who passage cells differently than I do. So, for example, if we all sort of come up with our own approach for passaging cells, and it sort of just depends on how we were taught, or maybe what the written protocol says, but we know there's inherent variability in the way people do things. And so, by turning to automation, this variability can go away, because a lot of the times, this variability will show up in your future assays. And finally, it comes down to scheduling as well. When do I need cells? When am I going to plate my experiments? When I'm doing multi-day workloads, frequently, again, some of these cell culture assays may take days to weeks. What planning ahead do I need to do to ensure that I'm not here all day on the weekends? And so these are just some of the considerations that can hopefully be addressed through automation. For the work we've done, this will be done on an i7, the same as most of the work has been done previously, and it features a number of integrations which we'll show shortly. The work we did involved just culturing 2 adherent cell lines, CHO cells, which we'll show most of the data for, as well as HCC116, and the suspension cell lines, which are CAD cells. Basically, we were passaging the cells in 6 well plates, so essentially larger well plates to have enough cells to plate for experiments. We would pass a known cell number every 2 to 3 days, and then we would plate these cells in either 96 or 384 well plates for future assays as proof of principle. The system itself utilized an integrated Cytomat 2C incubator to allow us to culture our cells directly and bring them onto the system in an automated fashion. It also had an integrated BiCell XR cell viability analyzer shown on the right, and this would enable us to counter cells at time of passaging. It also had a tilting out for larger well plates to basically allow the media to slide all to one side and enable us to remove that media without disturbing the cells. And we also had the integrated spectrum magnetized reaction with Minimax that I mentioned earlier, and we used this for some imaging and cell counting assays, which we'll describe later. So now we'll show a video again that will really demonstrate how this workflow proceeds and how we utilize the different integrated instruments. So shown here is the automated approach we took to automating cell culture, starting from the larger 6 well plates and moving assays into 96 well formats. Shown here is the tilting out, and the advantage of this is that the media can be removed from the edge of the well without disturbing the adherent cells on the well. We use this Fan-H system with the P1000 to reach into the corner well and remove the media, and then another P1000 tip to dispense 800 microliters of tristan to remove the cells from the surface of the plate. This plate was then incubated at 37 degrees for 5 minutes, and this was done on a static Peltier, but could easily have been done on the integrated incubator as well. We then used our optimized pipetting to pipette around the circumference of the well to make sure the cells were removed from the surface of the plate, and then also did a mixing step to ensure that the cells were distributed into a single cell suspension. A portion of these resuspended cells were then added to the sample cup for the integrated BiCell cell viability analyzer, and the BiCell returned a viable cells per mil number, which the Biomech was then automatically able to use to calculate what volume of cells needed to be transferred to reach a certain number of cells. If the volume was over 1 mil, the capacity of the tip, the split volume step could be used to automatically transfer the larger volume. In this case, we dispensed 1 million cells into the subsequent well for continuing passages, and a second subset of cells was then added to a large multi-channel reservoir containing 100 mils of media. One of the advantages of the large capacity multi-channel head is that we are now able to completely mix these large volume reservoirs and ensure the cells were evenly distributed throughout the reservoir. In addition, we were able to increase the throughput by using a multi-dispense feature, allowing us to plate 4 96 well plates with 200 microliters per well and a single transfer step. Again, this can be used to increase throughput and process numerous plates simultaneously or process as many plates in a subsequent fashion as needed. So hopefully that gives you a pretty good idea of what the automation looks like and what the workflow looks like. We'll now look at some of the data that came off the system. So the first question is just regarding the passaging from one 6 well to another. So all the work we'll show here was done using the Chinese hamster ovary cells grown in adherent conditions. And so demonstrated here is basically the results of one of our 6 well passages. Shown below is basically taking 4 regions of interest and taking 12 images for each region using the SpectraMax Minimax imaging cytometer 24 hours after plating. And what you can see is that basically there's no clumps of cells, no clusters, so it looks like we had a really effective crystallization and mixing, and also it looks very evenly distributed across the 4 regions. So what you can see on the left is what I could achieve manually, and on the right is what the system was able to do in an automated fashion. We got very comparable percentages of confluence, right around 60%, and very low CVs in both cases, indicating, again, good dispersion across the wells. Looking across multiple passages now, so shown here are basically the automated and a comparison and manual of what I was able to achieve. And we look at on the left at cell count, and looking basically how consistent those were across passages, and also across automation versus manual. And on the right-hand side is plotting viability, and so we were able to achieve consistently above 90% viability in all our 6 of our automated passages. More interesting is that actually, if you look, we were actually able to achieve results that were more consistent than I was able to achieve manually. So again, looking at TVs of 7.9% in an automated fashion when comparing cell counts across 6 passages, was better than the 13.8% TVs I was able to achieve manually. You'll also notice that there was slightly less cells on average in the automated well, and that's likely because when we have the plate in a tilted fashion, I can't actually angle the pipette the way I can while performing it manually. So there's that small 5 to 10%, probably 5% of the well that may not necessarily get rinsed down during the automated passage. So we're likely plating the same number of cells and culturing the same number of cells, but can't quite harvest the same number of cells. But again, we can do this more consistently, and this consistency can hopefully lead to more consistent results with our assays. When it comes to actually plating, the video demonstrated plating into 4 96 well plates, but we actually decided to take it one step further and try and plate into 2 384 well plates, doing 100 microliters multi-dispenses, much like we demonstrated in the video. And so again, 100 microliters per well times 768 wells. And what we were able to see is that we did, again, imaging after 24 hours, and we then looked to see did we get consistent distribution of the cells across the plates, so essentially that did our mixing in the reservoir work, did we get roughly equivalent cells in all regions of the plate, and that's really 2.2% or lower across all the columns and all the rows across both of the plates. And finally, we looked at how consistent was basically where we getting the same number of cells for each descent in all of the 8 quadrants. And when we compare the average counts per quadrant, we saw PGs less than 7%. So again, very consistent passaging and plating, hopefully resulting in consistent assay results. Another consideration that we touched on earlier is multi-day workflows. So for example, we just plated our 96 or 384 well plates. How long do these plates need to incubate? Is there an additional treatment? How long until we assay them? These things all have to be taken into consideration because very rarely is this a single day of approach. So when automating these types of approaches, there's a number of requirements. One main one is that you need to have good resource management and scheduling, and this comes back to our SandyEX software, where again, when you're processing multiple plates, it will find the most efficient way to process those plates in batch-wise fashion. It also requires sample tracking. You need to know where your samples are at any given time in the workflow. And you also need to know if your Vimac will be available on a given day. So if you have interleaved multi-day workflows, our Sandy Process Management software can help schedule these things on a calendar so you can ensure that, again, will you need to come in on a weekend? Is the instrument already being taken on for other assays on a given day? And finally, you need good data tracking, and this is where our data acquisition and reporting tool DART comes into account. Basically, these types of multi-day assays may be made up of little islands of automation, right, where you will bring it in on day 0, see the cells, send them to the incubator, bring them back on day 3, treat them. DART is basically our tool that every time that plate comes in, it can read the barcode and know everything that's been done to that plate to date, and all of that information is carried forward, so that eventually your treatment and your eventual assay result will all be located in the same database on the same level. So to wrap up the automated cell culture portion of the talk today, hopefully I've shown you that we were able to handle larger well plates and flasks, really using the SPAN capabilities. So having that combination of pipetters, the SPAN for those 6 well plates and the multi-channel for the microtiter plates, really is valuable for this type of workflow. There are some caveats. One is that you may need to do some optimization for any given new cell line. One example is the frequency of passaging. So for example, when we were passing the Turcat cells, we would pass them every 2 days and they were completely happy. The CHO cells, when we tried to passage them every 2 days, seemed to actually die off a little bit, and so that's why we